Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I get asked all the time, what is the number one thing to do immediately if you feel inflammation coming on? So some kind of flare up. Especially if it's surrounded by something that you ate or some kind of like stress reaction that you had. So if you had a bad stressful event, or maybe you had something, you're not sure what, that all of a sudden you feel has triggered inflammation and now you're potentially flaring up. What can we do to kind of slow down this inflammation process? So I want to just unpack this really quick for you guys. Now, I will put a disclaimer in here and say that there are so many different reasons why you may be having a flare-up, whether it's an autoimmune flare-up or some kind of intestinal flare-up like an IBS reaction or something like that. Depending on the reason why, this may or may not work for you. Most of the time, if you've gotten your autoimmune more balanced out and more in control, and then something happened that is triggering a flare, and again, you're not sure what, then this tip is for you. It may work in other situations as well, but this is kind of what I'm referring to. So I will give you an example. A client of mine that I've been working with for over 2 years, she's made amazing improvements on her psoriasis. So she came to me with autoimmune psoriasis and SIBO. We worked on both, feeling great, kind of in remission. So she is only doing maintenance protocols with me every, maybe 4 months or so. And she's been feeling great, but then she went on a trip and there was multiple delays with her flights and things like that. And it caused her to have a lot of stress and anxiety because she was traveling with kids. And then they were not able to eat the food that they would have normally eaten because they were stuck to airport food while they were just sitting there waiting for their flights to get sorted out. Anyway, long story short, the combination of the stress that she experienced plus the food that's not ideal, lack of sleep, all that stuff, it kind of came together and started causing her to have a psoriasis flare-up. So she started to initially feel itching on her hands, and then she started getting a little bit of a redness on her neck. So right away she messaged me and she says, okay, I'm kind of panicking now. I am just about to start my vacation and I feel like I am flaring, and I haven't been flared up in over a year. So what is happening and what can I do? So what I recommended she did was one thing. There's a lot you want to do. And again, this tip is very dependent on the person and it may not work for everyone. So take that with a grain of salt when I'm sharing this tip with you. But I do find it works for the majority of my clients. And that is to work on shutting inflammation down as quickly as we can in the gut. Again, if your reason for your flare is stemming from either stress and or something you ate. The reason is because if you had something you shouldn't have eaten or you were stressed out, inflammation builds up in the gut by inflammatory cytokines that are released. If you eat something you shouldn't have, you get this antibody reaction, or maybe you're feeding some pathogens and there's some kind of reaction happening in the gut. And if you're stressed because of that vagal nerve, you also get that gut inflammation. With this inflammation, most of the inflammation we have in our body comes to us from a certain degree from our gut. And so it'll start to create a chain reaction as it builds up in the gut and we start getting more histamine production, more inflammatory cytokine activation, things like that. It'll start to affect our immune cell production. Our body might start making more Th2 immune cells or things like that. And then we can end up with a full cascade of inflammation throughout the body. But it usually kind of stems from the gut to start. So with that thought process, shutting down inflammation in the gut before it can get out of control is a good approach to take. And what's one thing we can do? Turmeric or curcumin. Now, again, this isn't for everybody, and some people actually might not even have a good reaction to turmeric or curcumin. Depends on your autoimmune. It depends on a lot of factors, but for the average person who is not insanely flared up, who has kind of managed their autoimmune and feels like they're just flaring up from some kind of stress or diet thing, taking a curcumin or a turmeric helps to really shut down that inflammatory cytokine activation in the gut. The thing here is, and I have made a full, in-depth scientific article about this exact topic on holisticspring.org membership platform, explaining this in much more detail, sharing scientific research and explaining exactly what to do. But I'll link that down below, the holisticspring.org link. But essentially what's happening is you want to be taking a curcumin or a turmeric that's poorly absorbed. So I know a lot of people always think that it's good to have a curcumin or something that can absorb really good, and so they're taking it with a lot of black pepper and things like that. When we have gut inflammation localized to the gut, we don't want the curcumin being absorbed, say through the stomach or through the intestinal lining, because then it's going to be working on inflammation throughout the bloodstream or somewhere else. We need that anti-inflammatory effect in the gut and to stay in the gut. So you want to get a poorly absorbed turmeric or curcumin powder. You can get a curcumin supplement and just get something that's basic, something that's not going to absorb super well. So how do you know if it's going to absorb really well? If on the supplement bottle it says high absorbency or something like that, bioavailable, stay away from that. Go for one that's just pure curcumin in a capsule. If you're going to go for the turmeric powder, that's fine too. Just go for an organic turmeric and try your best to get a really, really clean brand that's been tested for heavy metals and toxins and things like that. But essentially you want to take curcumin. Now the dosage will be up to you. If you're using a powder, just straight up turmeric, I usually would recommend like half tablespoon. I mix it with a little bit of coconut milk or almond milk or something like that. Little bit of liquid stevia if you want to sweeten it a bit. You can blend it up and drink that. That'll be a great gut soothing anti-inflammatory tonic. Another option is to get pure ginger root that's fresh and blend it up with, pure turmeric root that's fresh and blend it up with a little bit of ginger and some water and even a little lemon if you want, but blend it up and in a blender and then strain it through a nut milk bag and then take shots of that. So that's one way to get turmeric in. If you're going to go for the straight up curcumin in a capsule, just go for a cheap curcumin brand that's organic. You don't want like a garbage kind, but one that doesn't have all the additives to help you absorb it. And you can just take a couple capsules of that. And you want to do this daily until you feel like your inflammation's calming down. Typically a couple days should be enough. This isn't going to reverse your flare or anything like that. What the goal is here is to stop the inflammation, which will hopefully stop the flare from progressing and getting worse. Or at least if you are still going to flare, it should be a lot more mild. So I wanted to share this tip because it's something simple that we can do if you understand where the flare is coming from and why. If the autoimmune flare is coming from something else, if it's coming from a hormonal imbalance or liver and kidney toxicity, if you have not addressed your autoimmune at all and you have dysbiosis in the gut and so many things happening, that all needs to be addressed. So this is more of a tip for somebody who is feeling pretty good, has done a lot of work on their health and has gotten their symptoms under control, and all of a sudden, diet or stress, something came along to affect the gut and it's just flaring up a little bit. This can really calm it down and bring it down. It is something that I include as part of my protocols with my clients. So even clients that I'm just getting started working with, after we do 1 or 2 protocols, I will recommend that they add in like a poorly absorbed curcumin to their protocol just to bring gut inflammation down a little more and give them a little quicker relief while we're working through protocols. So this is a good tip to try regardless. And I mean, the worst thing that could happen would be if you were to be flaring and you try it and maybe not get the results you want. So you might not see much of a difference. The only time I'd say be careful is if you haven't had a good luck or experience with turmeric or curcumin in the past. If you feel like it made you flare up, then maybe avoid it. But if you have specific questions about this, because I know it's kind of a confusing topic, if you have specific questions about this, comment them down below. But again, I made a step-by-step in-depth post explaining exactly how this works, why it works, and what to do. And it's over on holisticspring.org blog. I would highly recommend reading it. It's a great resource to have on hand if you flare up. And so you know exactly what you need to do to try and help minimize the effects. And I do this at home all the time. If I've had a really stressful week, whether it's with work or with the kids or life stuff in general, and I feel like I might start to flare up, I will hit that curcumin. I'll make a golden milk latte. I'll do something like that to get that anti-inflammatory reaction in the gut. Vagal nerve stimulation is also something I would highly recommend doing, especially if you're going to be experiencing stress. Then it's a great thing to do to keep gut inflammation low as well. There's so much more, but really turmeric or poorly absorbed curcumin is a good way to go and start for the average person. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Again, any questions, leave them down below for me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.